This is part 4 of my Tamiya TA02 conversion to a Tamiya Top Force chassis. So I just finished putting everything together. I took it out for a test run, and outside of racing, I have to say this is probably the most fun I've had with an RC car in quite a long time. So a few comments first. The steering system that I got has a little bit of slop. I think maybe I need to size up on the bearings a little bit. There's a little play between the housing here and the bearings themselves. So especially on the right-hand side wheel, there's a fair amount of slop. So I have to work on that. Maybe that's permanent, maybe it's not. We'll see how much I can take out. For the shocks, I just want to mention I used 15 millimeter spacing on the front shock collar and a 13 millimeter spacing on the rear, because in the stock setting it's a little too soft, so I just tried to stiffen it up a little bit. The other thing is, when I took it out for a run, one of the top screws here came out and the other one is loose. And the thing is, on the bottom here you screw into this kind of a nut. If you're familiar with Tamiya chassis, you may be familiar with this type of nut. It's not a lock nut, it's just a standard nut. And I didn't use any thread lock or anything because I want to be able to take this off if I need to. So these do come loose fairly easily. So I just have to figure out maybe a better way of fastening the back part of this top plate onto the chassis. But otherwise it held together really well. Oh, another thing to point out, the rear stabilizer, this ball joint here, when the suspension compresses, it can, if it compresses enough, that ball joint can hit the motor ever so slightly. So maybe use a ball joint that's a little shorter or something, or just eliminate it altogether. I didn't notice any problems with it when I was driving though. Let's see, the gearing that I'm using here is the 74 tooth spur gear with a 19 tooth pinion. I have a Hobby King 4000 kV motor. With that gearing and setup, and with these tires, these Proline Road Hogs, this thing can actually pull wheelies. Now I'm running gear diffs front and rear, so there's no slippage of any ball diffs, but this will pull wheelies if you go full throttle from a dead stop. So that's kind of cool. I'm using a Turnigy Trackstar 100 amp ESC. It took a little bit of time to get this calibrated because the instructions tell you to go through a certain sequence, and it just takes a couple of tries and eventually figure out how to actually make it work. But I did manage to get this calibrated with my Exis that has a Spectrum module on it. Some people had commented that they could not get their Trackstars calibrated with a Spectrum type of system, but I managed to get it to work. Let's see, what else do I want to point out? I don't know, it was just a lot of fun. The suspension setup the way it is, it does, the outside rear wheel can sort of pick up a little bit when you're cornering, so that's kind of fun, I guess. The steering, again, is a little sloppy. I have to work on that. But this is the final product, and I think it works great for the most part. Still a little bit of tweaks here and there, but I would say this is pretty much done. So I hope you enjoyed this series of build videos on how to convert a TA02 to a Top Force. It's not that difficult to do. Most of the parts are intercompatible. You just have to get the Top Force chassis plate, the J parts, and the longer drive shaft, and everything else pretty much works out. So that's it, and I will soon be moving on to other project chassis.